Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers insider believes disappointing starter could still be cut. The Pittsburgh Steelers have let go of quite a few former starters this offseason. They've moved on from a center, wide receiver, punter, cornerback, and quarterback who all started games last season. That seemed to be the end of their major cuts, but it seems there could be one more starter from the 2023 roster that doesn't make it to the first game of 2024. During an appearance on 93.7 The Fan, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Fittipaldo revealed that he believes starting left tackle Dan Moore Jr. might not be on the roster next season, depending on how the draft plays out. They had to start him as a rookie. He wasn't very good, got a little bit better each and every year, but he's still not a guy that I want as my blindside protector, Fittipaldo said, via Steelers Depot. I think he's a guy who has the respect of Mike Tomlin and Pat Meyer. I think he's worked hard to achieve that. But he's certainly a guy who could be over-recruited, and he's a guy who could potentially not be on this roster in 2024 if things break a certain way with the draft and how these guys come along. After being selected in round 4 back in 2021, Moore immediately worked his way into the starting lineup for the Steelers as their left tackle, but his quick introduction into the starting lineup didn't translate into quick success. Moore struggled as a rookie. In 1079 snaps, he committed 5 penalties while allowing 7 sacks on 46 total pressures, according to PFF. It didn't get much better in his second season as he committed 10 penalties, which was tied for the 8th most in the league, and allowed another 7 sacks. Moore cleaned up his penalty issue in 2023. He only committed 3 penalties in 951 snaps. However, his pass blocking struggles continued. Moore allowed 8 sacks on 55 pressures. The one bright spot in 2023 was that he actually did play pretty well in the playoff loss to the Bills, not committing a penalty and only allowing a single pressure in 45 pass-blocking snaps. So far, this offseason Moore has been able to hold on to his spot on the team despite his struggles, but that seems likely to change during this year's draft. There isn't much that's clear about the Steelers' plans for the draft this year. They have a number of different approaches they could take early in the draft. Center, offensive tackle, and wide receiver are all spots they could try to address in round 1. The expectation is that their first pick is going to be an offensive lineman. The betting line on DraftKings Sportsbook for the Steelers' first pick to be an offensive lineman has gotten even larger recently, moving to -215. That could be either a center or an offensive tackle, but lately it has begun to seem that tackle should be the move. This year's draft class is very strong at center, and it's a position that isn't highly valued in the draft. That should mean the Steelers will have the chance to find their starting center in round 2. Meanwhile, the top talents at tackle should mostly be gone by the end of round 1. Who the Steelers would take with this pick is unclear. Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham, Troy Fautanu, and Talise Fuaga all look like possibilities depending on how the teams picking ahead of the Steelers value each tackle. Even Oluwaseun Fashanu fell to them in a recent mock draft. The pick doesn't even need to be a left tackle, as the Steelers could take somebody to play on the right and move Broderick Jones back to his natural position on the left in his second season. Whoever ends up at the top of their draft board when it's time for their first pick, it would be very surprising if the Steelers didn't have a new starting left tackle by the end of the draft. Steelers a long shot at signing Tyler Boyd, report. Talks of the Pittsburgh Steelers signing free agent receiver Tyler Boyd have quieted significantly since the start of free agency. Now, a new report from The Athletic's Mark Kaboly indicates the two sides are drifting further from reaching a deal. In a Steelers mailbag published April 2, a reader asked Kaboly if the Steelers and Boyd will find common ground. I would say that it would be a long shot, at best, that the two sides come together, Kaboly responded. From what I have been told, Boyd was extremely interested in Pittsburgh at the beginning of the free agency process, but the offer wasn't something he was comfortable with. Boyd has at least had preliminary interest from the Chiefs, Chargers, Dolphins, Lions, and 49ers. I am pretty sure the ship with the Steelers has sailed. Boyd, a Clairton native and Pitt grad, developed into a reliable pass catcher in his 8 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. Though he posted multiple career lows in 2023, he finished the season with 67 receptions for 667 yards and 2 touchdowns. Though it seems Boyd and the Steelers are inching further away from an agreement in the 2024 offseason, reports indicate the interest is still mutual. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Fittipaldo told 93.7 The Fan on March 20 that money remains the biggest roadblock to a deal. I think the Steelers view any of these current wide receiver free agents as number 3s, Fittipaldo said. I just don't think they want to pay $8 to $9 million a year for a guy who's going to be a number 3. Kaboly added in a March 29 report that the Steelers don't want to increase their offer to Boyd. The Steelers made some moves at receiver through free agency, but they remain particularly thin at the position. The team traded Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers on March 14 and released Allen Robinson II on March 8. General Manager Omar Khan added a couple of depth receivers in Van Jefferson on March 15 and Quez Watkins on April 1. Receivers George Pickens and Calvin Austin III are the only contributors from 2023 who remain on the roster. As it stands now, Spielberger believes the Steelers could have one of the 10 worst receiver rooms in the league. It needs improvement, he told 93.7 The Fan on April 2. Pickens is a legit one, in my opinion, and that goes a long way. You don't need to add a number 1 player at the position, which helps, but do they have a number 2 on their roster? No. You can probably argue they don't have a number 3 on the roster. Analysts continue to connect the Steelers to free agents like Boyd and former Cowboys receiver Michael Gallup. Michael Thomas, Odell Beckham Jr. and Hunter Renfrow are also available, but it seems more likely the team could turn to the draft to bolster their receiver room. According to Steelers Now, head coach Mike Tomlin appeared to suggest as much on March 24 at league meetings in Orlando, Florida. You know, we've got a lot of options there, Tomlin said, via Steelers Now. There's still a lot of capable guys on the market. The draft is probably unusually deep at that position and has been for the last several years. I just think that receivers and those that cover them come probably a little bit more ready in today's game than maybe in years past. The Steelers have hosted a few receiver prospects for pre-draft visits. Most recently, Western Kentucky receiver Malachi Corley was in Pittsburgh to meet with the team. Florida's Ricky Pearsall also came to Pittsburgh for a pre-draft visit. LSU lineman to have pre-draft visit with Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers' offensive philosophy might have changed a lot throughout the years, but they have remained a defensive powerhouse for many years. Even when their offense has been suboptimal, the Steelers' defense has made a way for them to prevail, for the most part. Mike Tomlin has been a big proponent of this during his time as head coach, and it is one of the main reasons he is viewed as one of the best in the league. As the Steelers look forward to what the 2024 season has for them with 2 new quarterbacks, they have to start considering what roster changes they will make in the new year. While they have made a few moves in the offseason, the 2024 NFL Draft gives them another opportunity to add new players. They are slated to meet with former defensive lineman Mazone Smith, as the Steelers Depot has recently highlighted on Twitter. Smith was a powerhouse at LSU, helping give Jaden Daniels and the offense plenty of time on the field. While this is just a visit, it could indicate what positional groups the Steelers are looking to grow in moving forward. Having more defensive linemen on a roster can't hurt, and if Smith lives up to the hype, he could slot into a starting role for this team if they draft him. With just a few weeks left until the draft takes place, teams are running out of time to make their final decisions on what players they decide to pursue. And you, fan, what do you think of the situation of Mazone Smith? Leave your opinion in the comments.